Sorry to everybody for some of the late start here, but welcome to the eFolder first partner chat of the year. My name is Ted Holsey, Vice President of Marketing at eFolder, and I'm your host for today's event. We are joined by Mick Geoghegan with Technology Management Incorporated, an eFolder and Anchor partner. He's going to be sharing his experiences. And the topic for today is 5 ways to achieve a 20% increase in revenue in 2014. So let's go through the agenda. But before we do, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. The recorded version of the webinar will be made available on eFolder's YouTube channel. We will also make copies of the slides available to those who attended the event. With over 250 people registered for today's session, we have put all participants it to your computer or by dialing in over the phone. Questions are strongly encouraged throughout today's presentation. In a special Q&A section at the end of today's discussion, but you may submit them as we go along, and we'll try to address your questions on the fly. Michael is going to explore the 5 ways that his company increased revenues in 2013. These techniques were empowering users at your clients, performing client health checks, using free trials, pricing for profit, and targeting verticals. Michael will demonstrate how these revenue-generating activities has actually improved the relationship he has with his clients by helping them to overcome challenges and increase productivity. Let me go ahead and introduce Mick Geoghegan. With more than a decade of experience in the IT industry, Michael joined TMI in 2011 as a senior engineer and earned a promotion to Chief Technology Officer shortly thereafter. Michael started his career in technology in the United States Navy and then moved into the field of engineering with Fuji, with BAE Systems and other outsourced IT service firms. Prior to coming to TMI, Michael was a land administrator for the prestigious George Washington's Mount Vernon Estate and Gardens, managing and implementing the technical needs of a staff of more than 900 employees and volunteers. As Chief Technology Officer, Michael leverages his experience, training, and ability to design and develop solutions for TMI ranging from day-to-day operations to design, implementation, and support of TMI's multiple data centers. As a veteran of the U.S. Navy's Advanced Electronics Corps, Michael is widely experienced and trained in all aspects of technology. With multiple ribbons and medals for his service, Michael truly has managed technology in every situation in multiple locations around the world. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So let me just turn things over to you and take it away. Tell us a little bit about TMI.
Sure. TMI is a managed service provider. We're in the Northern Virginia, D.C. market. We sit on about 700 clients, about 350 or so, which are active, and the other rest of them are on-off clients. Been in business since 1999. We sit at about 30 employees now. It comes and it goes as projects come on and go, but our average core is about 30 employees. It's a good balance of engineers, some office staff, and then a couple specialized SQL developers, web developers, things like that. But the bulk of what we do is the Microsoft products. We have a data center out in Ashburn, Virginia. It's currently 10 racks, private cage, full virtualized environment. And aside from the normal managed service provider type stuff, break, fix, repair, on-site, building computers, things like that, we also host cloud services for our clients. So it's most of the Microsoft shop, everything from Exchange, file servers, Active Directory, some SharePoint, SQL, things like that. So we tend to get in and out and around most of the Microsoft family of products. And that's about the bulk of what we do. But as always, as a managed service provider, you're always looking for something, your value-add services, other things that other companies might not be offering that you can offer your clients to add services, and that's where things like Anchor come in, hosted SSL, VPN, things like that. So let me just start flipping in here. Ted, I apologize. I lost mouse control. Can you give me the next slide?
Yeah, why don't you just go ahead and just tell me to advance the slides when needed, and I'll do so, okay?
Sure. So I'm going to go through a couple cases here, places that we've been able to deploy Anchor really successfully, but the biggest thing that you want to take away from each of these cases is our deployment of Anchor has been successful because Anchor is such a varied product. It fills a couple different holes. So by sitting down with our customers, by learning the kind of problems they're having, what they're doing, and how they're doing it, we've always been able to find ways to make that better. We originally came onto Anchor just as a backup product. We needed WAN backups for most of our customers who were out and about in the field, things like field techs, district managers, things like that, people who weren't regularly in the home office but needed the data on their laptops backed up. Our first big client here that we picked up was a medical services firm. We went out and had a meeting with them, and the problem that we were called in for was one of their field techs' laptops had ran out of space. We sat down, we took a look at it, and we figured out the reason he ran out of space is every one of their field engineers was coming back to the home office once a week and using Windows offline file sync to synchronize all of the customer data to their laptops. Well, this obviously is a problem because, one, they're syncing about 150 gigs of data to the laptops once a week, which means that's downtime for them. They got to walk in, set their laptop down, plug it in, and wait 5 hours for this data to sync. Two, there's a security aspect. Now you've got computers out in the field with customer data. If something gets lost or misplaced, you have your customer data out in the world now. And then three, obviously, they don't have up-to-date data. If they sync on Monday and then they're out on site on Friday, something might have changed through the week. They don't have that information up to date. So we sat down with them and we showed them Anchor. We found that not only were the field engineers using offline file sync, but the users in-house were using another product called Jungle Drive to get mapped access to their folders. Jungle Drive is a great product. I'll never knock it. It just hasn't been updated in a while. They had a lot of compatibility issues with Windows 7, Windows 8, some of the newer systems. So we were able to sit down with them and show them that through Anchor, we could not only resolve the mapping issue in-house, but through the WebDAV file sync, through the web portal, and through file syncing, we could give all of their field engineers secure access to up-to-date files in-house without requiring them to waste time by coming into the office once a week to synchronize all these files. The biggest thing for them, especially as a medical firm with HIPAA, was security. They needed to know that if they synchronize these files to the computers in an emergency, that they would be able to remove these files. Anchor provides this functionality built in. It was fantastic for them. Engineers, when they go out now, are able to access the WebDAV as long as they're online. If they know they're going to be somewhere where they're not online, all they do in the morning is pick the customer folder they need synchronized, pulls it down to their computer. They have everything they need. It's been a fantastic product for them, and it's really been our flagship demo. We've used this one customer as a demo for every other customer to show them how well it works. This one company specifically happens to be into all of the facets of Anchor. We're using it now to back up their field tech laptops. They're using it to map the data remotely. They're using it to access the web URLs. So we've been able to sit down with them, show them how everything's doing, and then take this to other customers and say, look, here's a deployment that we have. Here's some recommendations we have. Here's how we've deployed it for this customer. It could be great for you as well. The important thing here is we were able to get this sale. This is a big MSP thing. We were able to get this product deployed to them because we sat down, and instead of just fixing the problem, we were able to sit down and find a better way to do it. And that's been the key for us through everywhere we deployed Anchor. Everybody's got some sort of solution that they're doing this with. They've got a way to do it. They've got offline file sync. Some people are using VPNs. We had a customer that was syncing all their data to thumb drives and shipping them out once a week. So everybody's got a way that they're doing it, and it probably works in some way for them. So sometimes as an MSP, it's more than just fixing the problem. It's finding a proactive way to find a better solution that can save them money, it can save them time, it can increase their productivity, and Anchor really fit that for them in a lot of different places. So this was a great win for them. They really liked it.
Hey, Mick, can you talk a little bit about, the experience of the actual technicians and, kind of the feedback you've heard from them in terms of their new workflow? And, I mean, what was the day-to-day impact or improvement for them?
Sure. I remember when we first deployed to them, the biggest thing that they wanted from management, they wanted this to be seamless and easy. They didn't want some new piece of technology that everybody had to figure out how to work, and they were going to spend 2 weeks getting up to speed. They were already using Jungle Drive to get access to a mapped drive, so they were used to going into the end drive, whatever it was, to get to their customer data. So by converting the field techs from that end drive over to the web DAV through Anchor, it was seamless for them. The easiest thing was that they just didn't have to do anything. They kept doing things exactly the way they were doing them. We were just able to provide a different back end for it to make it work better. So the field techs came in, we configured their laptops. Some of them we did remotely through remote software, got them set up, showed them how to do it, and they were off to the races. There was no impact. Very little training had to be done, very little interruption in service. They just took it and ran with it. So that was a great experience for them.
Fantastic.
Bump over to the next one. There we go, strategy 2. This is a big thing for us, performing client health checks. We regularly go on site to our clients, be it just a budget meeting to talk about the next year's budget and what they should be thinking about, or even just lunch to talk about what they're doing, what are they thinking about for the upcoming year, what's working for them, what's not working. We try really hard not just to sit down with management, but we actually have our engineers spend some time in the office, sit around for an hour, talk to the employees, talk to the people who are really using the product, and find out what are they running into, what's not working for them, what's slowing them down, what's making their life difficult. Your biggest return on investment as an MSP is going to be solving those little problems. I mean, it's great to dump an Exchange server for them, fix their email, things like that, but if you can solve the little time waster problems, the little thing is that you have 15 minutes here when something's not working, they have 20 minutes there. It saves them a lot of time and enables them to be a lot more productive. So we do it, depending on the size of the client, we're either in there once a year. Some of our larger clients, when they're 3 or 4 times a year. We even have some clients where we have a weekly meeting. But by constantly keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on with your client, you're able to, A, find problems that they have that you can solve, and B, you get feedback on solutions that they need that you might not have. They might come to you and say, we need a way to remote print from the field, things like that. This is a chance for you to go in and find a new product, deploy it to them, and then probably find some of your other customers who need it as well. It really enriches your role as an MSP by being able to provide that full concierge service, everything they need from soup to nuts. Budget cycling is a big one for them too. We really like to go in once a year, depending if they're on calendar or fiscal budget, talk about next year's budget. You know, a lot of companies don't think about budgeting for IT, especially your smaller companies, but you can sit down and talk to them about PCs. You know, you have 30 PCs in the office, a couple of them are old. Why don't we budget replacing 4 this year, 2 in the first quarter, 2 in the second quarter? You can talk about services, you can talk about things that might be upcoming that they can use, but the nice thing about this is you're almost pre-selling your own services. If you go to them right now and say you need a new email server, it's going to be $5,000, they're going to shut you down. But if you tell them you're going to need new email second half of next year, they can build it into their budget. It's a much easier sell 6 months from now when you come back and try to move the product. So by really understanding their budget, talking to what they need and letting them plan ahead for expenses, you're going to have a much better close rate on a lot of your services, and that's going to help out a lot. Second case here was a nonprofit. This was a nice company. They, small company, nonprofit. They didn't have a ton of cash flow. They really couldn't deploy any big services. They couldn't get into SharePoint or anything really huge. They just needed a way for their end users who were on site and working out of home offices, different places around the world, to quickly get to files and have up-to-date access so they could all share the same file. Their biggest problem was a lot of their computers were old and slow. We needed something that was not going to be a heavy footprint. We needed something that was going to be a small piece of software we could install on there, let their files sync back to the home cloud, and let them access files off the home cloud. Because they're a nonprofit, even having a budget discussion with them is an exercise in futility. They don't have any budget. Any money they have is going to come through grants. It's going to come through little bits of money they can scrap here and there. So they needed something that was lightweight, easy to use, and really wasn't going to be a big hit for their budget. The way that we product anchor, the way that we package it, is by space, not by user. So we can tell them up front, we'll give you 100 gigs, have many users you want, and as they grow, we can grow their Anchor deployment with them. So 100 gigs is fairly cheap. They can start using it, maybe for a couple critical applications, and then over time, they can slowly expand it as they need to for more space, more files, more place for the users to put things. So that was nice for them, that it was small and easy for them to deploy. It wasn't a huge hit on their budget. Yeah, pick your battles on your budget front. especially when you're looking at like nonprofits, smaller companies. Listen, as an engineer especially, you're going to talk to these guys, you're going to want to fix everything. Engineers tend to be the guys who just want to go in and make everything work better. They don't always have the money for that. You got to pick the ones that are going to have the greatest impact up front. You know, if they're on a cloud-hosted email service like Rackspace and it works for them, you know, you might let that go till next year. Look at some more low-hanging fruit. What can you fix for them now that's going to make their life easier? Maybe save them some money now so that 6 months from now, a year from now, when they have a little bit more room in their belt, they can go on these bigger services. Allocating money for computers, we talked about, that's a big thing. If you can get them to plan their budget ahead of time, especially for end-user equipment, computers, printers, things like that, you will make your life a lot easier. It will reduce their service calls. You'll be able to move more product, and you're really helping them plan to spend money with you. There's no downside to it. And this key takeaways here, this goes back into those regular meetings. A lot of times there's users that have problems they just never report, especially smaller companies that don't have a big budget for service calls. Something small is going on, they have a pop-up, Internet Explorer stopped working, and they have a printer that broke. They just might not report it ever. They just might pick a different printer in the office, use a different browser, something like that. But these small problems, these half-an-hour fixes, over time will turn into a complete rebuild of the computer. So what might have cost them $50 up front is now going to cost them $500 to rebuild a computer. So by sitting down with them, and especially by sitting down with the end users and finding out about the little problems they're having, you can really help your customers save money by identifying small problems now before they become huge problems later, and that's a big deal for them. Virtual CIO, that's something we call it for all of our customers. We like to schedule as much time as they have, at least a monthly meeting. Like I said, some are weekly, some are yearly. But if you're a small company, you don't have, not only do you not have tech on site, you lose that break fix, but more importantly, you lose that tech knowledge. You lose having somebody in-house saying, here's some new ways we can save money, here's some new ways we can leverage technology, here's some new things that are coming out. So more than just providing break fix, the virtual CIOs go in and sit down with them and talk about all these new technologies that are coming out, new ways they can expand their reach, that they can reach more customers, that their employees can become more effective. So that's a huge deal for them. It's hard, especially when you get to the higher level engineer, to not be a sales guy. You want to be an engineer when you sit with these guys. You're not trying to sell them. You're not trying to twist their arm into buying something they don't need. You just want to show them, here's something that we can give you. You can do it better. It'll be cheaper for you, and in the long run, you're going to save your money. And a lot of times in the long run, they're going to make their money back by being more productive. Okay, now you can go to the next slide.
Okay. And I do want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Mick as we go along, please just type them into the Q&A feature on GoToWebinar, and I'll address them. Thank you. Go ahead, Mick.
Please. This next case was a restaurant client. We talked about this one a little bit in the beginning. This restaurant client has field managers, district managers, in and around the country. These aren't users who are sometimes back in the home office. These are users who are never back in the home office. The home office is located here on the East Coast. There might be a district manager out in Oregon. He's not coming back once a week to back up his computer. He's not in the office often enough to make any use of on-site technology. These guys needed a piece of backup software that would run on all these field computers that were never attached to the main network in a way set up that they could back up all of their critical data in case a laptop got lost, in case a laptop got destroyed or broken or a hard drive failed. So they didn't even really get into the web dev side of Anchor or any of these remote file shares. They just needed backups. Anchor was great for them, not only because it provided that web backup, but it's a complete user self-service. Not only were we able to install the agent for them, once we got it up and running, each user can log into their own portal and configure their own backups. If they have a folder on the C drive where they store things, if they have folders somewhere else on their computer they want to back up, they can do it themselves without having to call us in. And that's been a big deal for a lot of our customers, is by allowing user self-service, they're saving money there on the support calls. So they're not calling us every time they want to add a backup folder. The users can log in, not only pick what files to back up, but also they can restore their own files. They can restore their own different versions of files. This saves them money. It saves them support calls. It saves them the $50 every time they call us just to add a backup folder. what these guys had been doing originally is a lot of the district managers had Dropbox. And what they were doing is, of the 400 district managers, however many it is, they were just sharing Dropbox folders back and forth with each other. So they had this, when we looked at it, this complex spider web of Dropbox folders shared with different people, and their folders were shared with different people. And it was ridiculous. There was no centralized file share. A file had to get passed around between 42 different Dropbox accounts before everybody had contact and access to it. By providing just some quick district managers folders, East Coast folder, West Coast folder, whatever region they were in, they were able to dump all these Dropbox accounts, which saved all of them the $100 here and there, and centralize all those files into a location where A, they can be backed up and controlled by the main company, and B, everybody now has access quickly to the same file. If district manager in Omaha throws a file up in the district manager central region folder, every other district manager in the central region can instantly access it. It's not sharing it with Dropbox and sending links around where everybody has to fight to get access to the different folders. That was a lot for them to dump that. I think between about 400 district managers, they were paying close to $3,000 for Dropbox for everybody to have their own accounts. So by centralizing that, we provided a better solution that was cheaper. Now, there's no sale there. There's no pitch. If you can tell a customer that we can do everything that you're doing better and cheaper, you're going to close that deal on the same day. Free trials is huge for us, especially with all the technology that's out there. A lot of customers you're going to find are apprehensive to buy off on something new, especially with a contract, especially if you're looking at like a year contract. They don't want to buy off on it until they know that it's going to work for them. They want to see how it works. They want to see that it's going to fit their product. So a lot of times the way we sell Anchor, we give it to them for free. If a customer comes in and they get a file server from us or an Exchange server, they put anything in our cloud, we're going to give them 100 gigs of Anchor for free. They get it for 30 days or 90 days, however long we need it, and we let them play with it. This is nice because, one, once they start using the product, usually they don't want to give it back. Two, they might find features of Anchor that you didn't think to sell to them that are going to be useful to them. And we've had customers come in who we set them up for the web file sharing, and then they discovered the backups and they really like that feature or vice versa. So by letting them get into the product, it provides feedback for you about what parts of Anchor are more successful for them, which really is the best marketing data you can ever gather. It's having your end users use your product and come back to you and say, this is great, I could have used this, I wish I'd have known this was there. We have, off the top of my head, probably an 80 or 90% conversion rate for free trials. It's very rare that we give a free trial of Anchor and do not have the customer come back and buy off on it. Pricing is going to come in there. You got to be competitive with Dropbox. You got to be competitive with the other software out there that does it. But it's like selling crack. Once you get them into it, they're going to want to stay with it. They're going to want to be into it. They start getting into it. Everybody starts using it. They find out how much easier it is. Very few customers are going to say, listen, this is a lot easier and it's a lot cheaper, but I don't like it. So really think about not just for Anchor, but for a lot of your software, any value-added services that you're selling, free trial that stuff. Get it out there. Let your customers get their hand on it. You're going to get a loop there where they're going to start using it and buying off on it. They're also going to provide you feedback on that software, that what does or doesn't work for them, which is going to allow you to improve the software. You're going to be able to make it better, make it more widely adaptable, fix problems the customers are having, find out about little things that you might not have even known, because as an engineer, things make sense to you that don't make sense to customers. They're going to find things that don't work, things that are a little bit complicated that you might not have thought of because you're a computer guy. It makes sense to you. So, as much as you can get your customers having their hands on your software and get feedback from them, that's going to be a constant circuit for you to improve everything that you do. It's going to really let you refine your product, make it easier, make it more accessible, and that's a great thing. The more you refine your product, the more widely adaptable you make it, obviously, the more you're going to sell it, and the more you're going to be able to move it, and the better you're going to be. So that's a good one.
So Mick, a good question just came in from the audience here. It says, I like the free trial idea, but it does cost some time and resources to get everything set up for the client. Do you charge any kind of one-time setup fee for all the work related to the initial setup and configuration?
It depends on the product. For Anchor, we don't, because Anchor, if you haven't used it much yet, Anchor, once you have the back end set up, adding users and provisioning spaces takes 5 minutes. So there's really no back end setup fee. Now, the only thing we'll do with the Anchor free trial sometimes is if they want a free trial it for 90 days and they want it to be installed for 100 users and they want support installing those 100 users, yeah, we'll usually hit them for an hour or two. We'll send somebody over to the office for 2 hours to work on it. We'll bill them for that. But Anchor really, for most of the people that have done free trials, they're able to do it all themselves. The web GUI is designed so well that once the users log in, they download the app, they install it, everything just works. So most of the time, no. For some of the other value-add products we have that have more of a back-end setup, before demoing SharePoint, for example, or something like that, usually what we'll build in is it's a free demo. You get it for 90 days. At the end of 90 days, if you don't like it, you just have to pay us this much money. If you decide to stick with it, then we'll just build that cost into your bill and you don't worry about it. So it depends on the amount of setup. You want to try to remove as many barriers to entry as you can. Offering a free trial and putting a cost along with it is a great way to not end up offering that free trial. So anywhere that you can have canned solutions that you can quickly pump out as a free trial, even if you just have a basic SharePoint site set up for anonymous access, something that you can duplicate quickly. If you remove your work in the front end, you're able to free trial it without much back end lifting, get it out to more people. It's cheaper for them, and you're going to get a higher conversion rate. So hard to answer. You know, like I said, it depends on the product. It depends on how much.
Yeah, it depends. But I think it depends, and I think, but I think you've inspired a lot of people on the line here just to, you know, in this particular product and solution area, if you can get the users, a handful of users, you know, being passionate about how it's improving their workflow and their productivity, you know, that's your ace in the hole, right, to drive it to a company-wide deployment or client-wide deployment. Greg has a follow-on kind of technical question here. It says, speaking of number of users or licenses, when an office is set up, when an office is set up to do Active Directory authentication, will this tick the number of users up to the full number of users on that domain, or can we limit it to a set number of users? Hopefully that
when you configure the Active Directory authentication source, which is built into Anchor, it goes out to Active Directory and it pulls a list of users, and you can select whatever users you want. So if you want to select them all, you select them all. If you just want to select 20 out of a certain OU, you can just do that. It doesn't force you to import every single user.
Okay, great. And then a broader question comes from Christian. Do you offer free trials for your managed services? Kind of just a more...
we have every call for us, our managed service is such a broad question. Every call coming into us is free up to 15 minutes. We love that because you've got a quick question. Listen, you don't want to pay me $20 to ask what kind of batteries you should put in your keyboard. Free up to 15 minutes. We also offer free consulting. That's a big way to get us in the door. If you got a project coming up and you just want to talk about what you could do, how you could be doing it, how you could be doing it better, we're going to come out for free and sit down and talk with you. Maybe we land a sale and you go with us. Maybe we don't and you go with somebody else. But if we provide good advice and we don't push you too hard on the sale and we don't try to lock you in with us, don't pull the used car salesman routine, even if they don't go with us for this project, they're going to think of us for the next one. You know, a lot of times it eats up an hour out of your day. Not a huge deal. You sit down with them, you get some nice feedback from the customer, you find out what services they're deploying, what, you know, where their market is, what they're looking at using. You can look, are you into that product? Are you into that vertical market? Can you get into that vertical market? And a lot of times you end up closing the sale on it. A lot of times it's not hard. If you sit down as an engineer and give them your honest opinion of what they should be doing, whether it's with you or with somebody else, a lot of companies really just appreciate the honesty and the earnestness of sitting down and telling them, listen, you got 20 people. There's no reason for you to have your own Exchange server. Go with Office 365. It's going to be cheaper. We can help you deploy it if you want. You know, but just being honest with them, not trying to rope them in on every single little dollar you can, is going to make it easier for you to close the larger deals later.
And I guess a way to look at this question is, I think, let me ask a different question. I mean, most of the free trials you're doing, these are with, are these with existing clients who you're looking to upsell into the Anchor solution?
75-25, probably.
Okay.
That's 75% of them are active clients. 25% are new people we meet. We go to conferences. We're out and about. You know, we talk to somebody. They have something they want to try. Hey, I'll throw you on there for free. Take a look at it. Let me know what you think.
Right. But I think, kind of in my view, I mean, the lowest hanging fruit, I'm just noticing some of the names on here that there's a fair number of existing eFolder partners, some of whom have adopted the Anchor solution. I mean, I think to me, the big takeaway from the previous two strategies is, client health checks, QBRs, whatever you want to call them, are a great way to get in there and really understand where there's pain points, where there's users who are doing things that aren't either secure or aren't the most productive way of doing things. And the lowest hanging fruit is to, use something like Anchor as a free trial with those existing clients to, improve the experience for the frontline employees, and that's just going to lead to much larger deployments over time. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to use products like Anchor as the carrot. Anchor is, if you set it up right, not an expensive product to deploy. You can get away with it with some moderate disk space. It's really just a file server. You don't need 15K or solid-state disks. You can set it up in such a way where it pays for itself, and there's opportunities for you to give a free trial or even give the entire product away for free. Listen, if a customer comes in and they buy an Exchange server, a file server, an AD server from us, SSL, VPN, and a firewall, I'm going to give them 100 gigs of Anchor for free. We're making so much money on the rest of the project that if we can add that little value add service, customers talk to each other. Listen, when customer A starts using Anchor and they like it, they sit down with customer B. Customer B is going to give us a call and say, hey, we heard about this product you guys have. We'd like to try it. We free demo them, and then we end up converting them as a paid client. So use your small value add services as carrots where you can, as bait, I would say.
right. And one thing I think would be helpful to clarify for the audience, I think, is that, there's two different deployment models for the Anchor product. You can either deploy it as a private cloud solution in your own environment, and that's what you're doing, correct?
Right.
And then, or you can buy it in the so-called SaaS version of the product where eFolder provisions cloud storage with the software. So partners have the choice of either of these options to source it wholesale from eFolder to deploy it out. So the model you've picked gives you the maximum flexibility. The maximum flexibility in terms of how you price and package it and deploy it and use trials and whatnot. So I think we've covered this slide, but you maybe want to move on to, the fourth case study in pricing for profit.
Sure. The financial services client was a really interesting one. They came at us from a completely different angle. And like I said, this is the big thing with Anchor is selling it as a fit product. If a customer is looking for this solution, don't worry them with backups. Sell them what they need. The financial services client is a personal financial planner. He has a small firm, about 10 or 15 employees, but he has guys going out in the field all the time, sitting down in client offices, sitting down for lunch with these people, and he needed a way to securely access documents, trending data, PowerPoints, whatever he needed while he was out in the field. And it happens a lot. You're out in the field, you're pitching, your product one way, and the customer asks you a question, you didn't bring that document with you. Now you got to call your secretary, you got to call back to the office manager, have her email it to you. Hopefully you can open it on your phone. It gets to be a big pain. Not to mention a lot of times you're pulling this data down and storing it on your laptop. It's not very secure, especially with financial services. He needed to know that if he had data stored on his laptop, that he could, one, delete it if it got lost, and two, ensure that access back to the main office was secure. So we showed him with Anchor, with the web portal, and especially for him with the mobile phone and the tablet integration. If he was out in a restaurant, he was sitting down in a client's office, and he needed to pull back some data from the main office, instead of having to dial into a VPN or get an email to him, he could jump on his tablet, jump into the app, and grab the files very quickly over an SSL portal, very secure. So it was quick for him, it was fast, and a lot of times, especially with financial services clients, I learned you need to be fast with stuff like this. If they ask you a question and you don't have the data you're going to get back to them, they might just end up going with a different customer. So being able to have all of his data from his home office at his fingertips, readily accessible on his computer, on his tablet, through a web portal, on the customer's computer if he wants to dial into the web portal, made a big difference for him. He was able to convert more sales. He was able to get access to his data very quickly, and that was huge for him. I'll tell you, this customer is only really using the web portal and the tablets. He doesn't even get into the AD file sync. He doesn't use the WebDAV folder. He just wanted a quick way to get to his files, and by selling the right product to him the right way, it was an easy close. There was no question there. Look at this. Get solutions go viral. This is what I talk about. It doesn't take long, especially when you get deep into one vertical market, to get the word spread around. You start giving your product away. You start getting people to play with it. One user tells another user. They sit down at a conference. They sit down at lunch. Before you know it, they're calling you for your product instead of you having to farm for them. That's where a lot of those free trials are going to come in, and that's where a lot of those health techs are going to come in if you are the solution provider that's not hardcore pushing. If you're the solution provider that's really just honestly looking for better ways to do things for your customers and save them some money, and obviously you're going to make some money in the long run, you're going to go viral. Customers are going to be calling you for help because they know you're not going to try to push them on something they don't need. Listen, these people don't know technology. If you tell them they need an Exchange server, a lot of them are going to buy an Exchange server. But if you're able to sell them the products they need and you can develop that rapport and that trust with them, they're going to tell their friends are going to tell their friends. Before you know it, they're going to be calling you every day. We do sold business owner a 500 gig package. That's a big one. We don't have a single anchor client that hasn't started with 100 gigs and scaled up. Every one of them get into it. They think the same thing when they start. Listen, just give me 100 gigs. Let me start using it a little bit and see how it works. Usually within a month or 2 months, they turn into 200 gigs, turns into 500, turns into 750. I think our largest client right now has 1.5 terabytes. So it's a product that's going to grow itself, and if you price it right, remove the barrier for entry, make it so that it's not expensive to go from 100 gigs to 500 gigs to 1 terabyte, you're going to increase your revenue, and it really won't take long before the whole anchor product is paying for itself.
So, Mick, a question came in from Richard, and he this is kind of relevant to financial clients, I think, a little bit, but he says, how do you handle the situation where a customer does not feel comfortable with backup in the cloud, but wants local on-site storage? So just how, I guess, how do you just overcome the generic objection about people, syncing their data or uploading their data to the cloud?
A lot of those customers, well, it started out with us. We partnered with a security firm that did an audit of our anchor setup and provided us a placard of this is secure. The nice thing about the security firm that we partner with is they were keynote speakers at Red Hat. This is a pretty big firm. So having that certificate of authenticity, whatever you want to call it, from a security firm saying this is secure, then it's really not a hard sell. You explain to them the SSL, the back end behind it, how it's encrypted, how everything is tunneled through SSL. And then you explain the trade-off. Yes, having it in your office is slightly more secure, except you have cleaning crew and alternative staff in there all the time. So physical access is really more insecure than internet access. Also, physical access doesn't do any good if you're in Omaha. That's great that your backups are very secure if you're handling them in your office. And the guy in Omaha who has no backups, his are very secure because they don't exist. So there's a certain point where you can just show them, usually the big thing for us is that third-party vendor showing that we've been through and tested this site and proved it's secure. That made a big difference. We're able to show them it's good, it's working, it's proven secure, it's tested by a third-party authority, and it really works in a way that you can't work with on-site physical access.
Right, and I think I would add to that that, and this kind of goes back to your very first point about really listening to what frontline users need and want from their technology in the workplace, is that if you don't find highly secure business class ways of allowing people to sync and share their data and sync their data to their mobile devices, they're going to find end runs. They're going to hack the system. They're going to install Dropbox and other consumer services to be productive and to get their files off-site. And so, the business owner can be thinking one way, but his employees may be doing something else. And we see this all the time coming into workplaces where things are just totally out of control. And so you can't fight the users. You've got to empower the users and then, in turn, put in place a secure solution that has remote wipe, that has, the correct authentication schemes, the correct encryption schemes. And it's really a balancing act. Just paranoid fear of the cloud just doesn't cut it because the users will not sit on their thumbs, right? So,
I have an example there if we have a little bit of time.
Sure.
We had a separate financial firm. It was a much larger company. When we started to talk to them about Anchor, Similar situation came up there. A financial firm, they said, listen, I don't really trust the cloud. I don't think it's something we need. And you get this with a lot of customers who haven't seen that the workplace is going mobile. What we found after a little bit of investigating is they had an employee who wanted to work from home on the weekends. So what she was doing was plugging in a thumb drive and downloading all of the data and just taking it home with her, and then taking it back to the office and uploading all of her changes. Listen, I don't care whether you trust the cloud or not, having a thumb drive in your pocket is not secure, especially if it's a thumb drive in your pocket with financial data for $5 billion worth of clients. Listen, they're going to do it like you said. They're going to find a way around it. They're going to grab a thumb drive. They're going to grab an external hard drive. They're going to find a way to get that data so that it can work the way they need it to work, from home, from vacation, from the train station, wherever they are. So if you can prove that you have a more secure solution, which is more secure than a thumb drive isn't much, that allows them to do this, whatever an irrational fear of the cloud they may have, they got to realize it's happening anyway. They either need to embrace it or deal with the fact that it's going to happen behind their back.
Exactly. Okay, so let's kind of move on to the last kind of strategy, targeting verticals.
This is, and I've talked about this all through this presentation. Anchor, because it's a widely varied product, because it offers that web dev and the web portal and the sync for users files and the backup portion, it's a product that you can apply 30,000 different ways to 30,000 different customers. You want to position it by vertical market and by customer. You really want to customize it as much as you can. So when we went to that medical services client, they needed backups and they needed a remote file access, so that worked well for them. The restaurant client needed the same kind of thing. They needed backups. That's all they really cared about in the beginning was, we need to know that this data in the field is being backed up and it's secure. The financial services client needed a file server extension. He needed to be able to access his files from the road securely. So you really need to look at, what is your customer doing? Listen, whatever vertical market they're in, I don't care if they sell shoes or they sell financial services or they sell sandwiches, some part of Anchor is going to be applicable to them. There's very few workplaces that I've been into nowadays that have zero mobile aspect. There's always somebody on the road, somebody working from their vacation house. Find out how Anchor will fit them and sell it to them as that product. Reposition Anchor the way you need it to so that it fits them. And a lot of times when they get into one aspect of Anchor, the rest of them are going to follow. If they start using it just for backups, they're going to be using it for file sync also.
Great. Yeah, so any final thoughts on verticals?
Okay, look at this. So we talk about the unique processes and technologies that your clients have. That's important. You, like I said, sell Anchor the way it needs to be sold. Sell the aspects of it that they're interested in right now, and trust that the rest of it's going to follow if they start using it. As a partner, as a third party, I'll tell you, Anchor is a fantastic product for us because it does so many different things and fills so many gaps. Find a way to sell it, and they're going to buy off on the rest of it. Vertical solutions expertise. Know your customers. If you're working with a financial services firm, find out a little bit what they do. If you're working with a restaurant firm, if you're working with a medical services firm, if you're working with a nonprofit, find out what they do. Know enough about their business that you're recommending technology solutions that work for them. The last thing you want to do is recommend Anchor to a customer and find out that it doesn't meet some sort of compliance or requirement that they needed, and now you've sold them a product they don't need, and you get some backlash from that. So know a little bit about what they're doing and how they're doing it and what the requirements are for their market. Audience, owners versus users. This is a big thing. We've talked about this all through this. Owners think about cost and functionality. Users just want it to work. Users want the easiest possible experience. How can I do what I need to do, where I need to do it, how I need to do it, and have it work? They don't want to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning because they can't get into a file. They don't want to have to deal with any problems. They just want to turn on the computer and have it work. You sell one to the other. If you sit down with the users and you hear about the problems they're having and you hear about what's slowing them down and what's keeping them from being productive, and then you take that to the owners and say, hey, you guys are eating probably 2 hours a day with things not working. Or every time this user dials in remotely, it takes them 20 minutes and they have problems with it. We can increase your productivity, we can decrease your cost, we can increase your output. And you have specific examples, not from the market, not from the vertical solution, but you have specific examples from their own users, from their own company. Listen, I talked to Peggy in accounting, and she can't access QuickBooks from home. She wants to be able to, and I think there's a way that we can do it and make it secure for you. Are you interested? Things like that. So pitch one to the other, find out about as much as you can about the user experience, and then pitch that to the owners. Yeah, I mean, it's not a hard sell. Once you understand the problem they have going on, if you understand their market, if you understand their user experience, you can pitch the right product very easily. Market strategies, same as we talked about with the know your vertical market. If you're selling to a particular market strategy, if you're going to a convention for financial clients, is know enough about the product, have your guns loaded for the aspects of Anchor that are going to work for a financial services client. If you're talking to a food services company, be ready and have your sheet together for the parts of Anchor that are going to fit for them. It's all about, with a product like Anchor that's so widely varied, selling the parts of it that work for the market that you're selling to that market. It's really not going to be a hard sell for anybody. And that's what I got.
Well, so Mick, we talked a little bit about kind of how you're evolving your overall strategy as a company. Can you talk a little bit about how mobility, you see mobility fitting into, you know, the future and whatnot?
Sure, absolutely. Actually, just I wrote an article about this for our own TMI blog. Anybody on this webinar who's old enough to remember 10 years ago, there was no mobility in the workplace. You had to go to the workplace because that's where the files were. That's where your computer was. You probably, if you had internet at home, it was slow. If you had a computer at home, it wasn't that great. Mobile phones weren't really around. Well, I guess 10 years ago might be a little bit too new for that. 15 years ago, mobile phones weren't really a big deal. Smartphones certainly weren't around. So there was no thought about mobility in the workplace. There was no question of were people working from home. If you weren't in the office, you just weren't working. Bandwidth is cheaper now. Storage space is cheaper. Most people have a stronger computer at home than they do in the office. Most people have faster internet at home than they do in the office, especially if you live in regions where weather is common, like we're up in the Northeast. You get snow. We get icy roads. If you can find a way to empower mobility for your client, to allow them to continue functioning during a snow day, to allow them to continue functioning when somebody's out sick, somebody's out on maternity leave, it's going to keep their process moving. No client, no matter how big they are or small they are, wants to know that their entire business is shut down for a day because the roads are icy. You know, they don't want to force their employees to come in on dangerous roads. They don't want anyone to be coming in when they're sick. But the more solutions that you can put in place for them that allow their employees to work from anywhere, it allows them to keep that train moving. They can keep working. They can keep functioning. They can access their files and do what they need to do while they're sitting on the couch with a broken leg, or while their husband is shoveling the snow outside. Whatever it is, you want to keep them working. So products like Anchor, SSL VPNs, we do a lot of RD web and terminal services, setting up that mobility and making it functional for the PC, the Mac platform, and also mobile device is a huge thing for them. So that's where we've been focusing a lot recently.
Okay. Well, great. Mick, thank you very much. Excellent insights. I think what we're going to do in the interest of time is just continue to answer everybody's questions. But before we go into that, if there is anybody on the line who is interested in a free trial of the Anchor solution and you are an MSP or VAR, all you have to do is go to anchorworks.com and fill out the form there. If you maybe have played with the product before or heard about it, but you're ready for a demo, that's another choice you can make, is to get a demo right now, or just simply call our sales team. But let's kind of, we only have a couple more minutes left, so let's try to tackle a couple more questions. Raj wants to know, he says, I have a vertical I'd like to sell this to, but they tend to have smaller backups. How do you suggest I approach this?
You said smaller backups?
Smaller backups. Yeah.
I don't know if I understand. I mean,
well, I mean, I think that let me try to take a stab at an answer. I mean, I think Raj, I mean, backing up data is only one small part of the functionality of the Anchor solution. I think, you know, the thing to focus on is how the ability to sync data between people's work machine, other remote machines, say a home PC in a home office, and people's mobile devices is a huge productivity benefit. So I wouldn't focus so much on the size or amount of data that needs to be synced, because it's really about, I mean, the huge part of the value proposition here is about productivity for employees as employees become more mobile and more distributed. So I mean, I think that's how I would answer that particular challenge, marketing challenge. It's not about the volume of data.
And bear in mind here, we keep saying backups. Anchor's backups is a file sync, not a traditional. If you're thinking of like a backup exec traditional backup where it runs on a schedule, so the size doesn't really factor in. You're going to tell it to back up the C: users folder. It's just going to keep that folder in sync and keep as many versions as you need it to. So it's not a backup that's running every 20 minutes. It's a backup that's running as long as the computer's online. It's going to be synchronizing those files.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important comment to make. Is that we could do a whole webinar on this topic of the differences between backup and sync. But Bill asked a question earlier. It says, is eFolder backup now being positioned as Anchor? And the answer is no. I mean, for those of you who know eFolder and may just know Anchor, I mean, eFolder, we acquired Anchor back in September, and we're operating it as a wholly owned subsidiary. And eFolder has been known for a long time for our backup solution, right? So the reality is that eFolder backup is a more robust backup solution that handles not just workstations and laptops, but servers, open file backups for servers, scheduled backups, unlimited versioning, etc. And it does a lot of things in the backup arena that Anchor does not do. And Anchor really, it has a file level backup capability, but its main use case is really about syncing and keeping employees in sync with their files, and also especially giving them mobility to their files from their mobile devices like smartphones and tablets. So there's some functional overlap, but really we're operating these as two different product lines. Let's see here. I'm just trying. There's a lot of questions that just came in, and I'm just trying to pick one last question. So Philip wants to know, how do you integrate security software into the Anchor solution you sell? One concern I have is that this is a good vector for viruses to propagate between machines if you have someone who is lax with security.
We do, and I'll tell you, as any MSP, as any network designer, you have layers of everything. Not only are we doing regular checks with that security firm, not only are they providing real-time data back to us for geographic locations to block on our firewalls, especially because this is hosted in our data center, we're also using the built-in antivirus scanning in our firewall. We are regularly scanning the data. It's really, no one solution, especially with viruses, is going to solve your problem. But the biggest solution that we found for any kind of malware and viruses is having an active blocking list, finding out from some sort of vendor, be it your security partner or whoever it is you work with, where are the viruses coming from, what are the areas of the world that you can block to limit that access, and then importantly, having that scanning capability on your firewall. Have a firewall, an enterprise firewall in place that's robust enough to provide bit-level scanning to look for this data that's coming in and block it. We, over the course that we've had Anchor in place now, I don't think we've had a single problem with viruses on the server being propagated through the data.
Okay. Well, great. We like to try to end these events, start them on time and end them on time. And I want to thank everybody for their attention today. But I also want to really thank Mick for some really insightful comments, some best practices on how to grow an MSP business. Thank you very much. Generous use of your time, Mick. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, and everybody, thanks a lot for joining the first eFolder Partner Chat of the year, and look forward to seeing you on a future session. Have a great day. Take care now.